So Notion has made big improvements to their database automations, like adding multiple conditions to your automation trigger, or being able to trigger specific values based off of different properties. Now this video is full of examples of how to use these new features. Let's get started. Now Notion automations are still made up of two familiar definitions, adding triggers and adding actions. But if you look closer, it allows you to change the trigger from when all of these occur to any of these can occur. And if you add any trigger, say the page, you will now find the plus sign appearing, allowing you to add multiple triggers. Now, digging further, you will also find that for specific properties like the text, the number, the multi-select, the relation, etc., you get different options now. On the action side, you can now add, remove, or toggle selections, people and relations, instead of just an override. Let's look at some examples to see how powerful these changes can be. Let's start with the Eisenhower Metrics. Now you would be familiar with the Eisenhower Metrics that helps you categorize a task into 4 quadrants based on their urgency and their importance to help you prioritize effectively. You can set the priority for a priority select property based off the task name property when you give the quadrant number of the task. Let's look at how it's configured in the automation. You will notice that I have configured all 4 quadrants in the automation. Let's specifically see how quadrant 2 is configured. The others are just similar to this one. Now the configuration trigger is if the task name starts with 2, then the priority is set to important. Now to follow through the priority 1 item, for example, where there is a critical systems failure, I want the business to get involved every time there is a priority 1 item. Now for that, I have configured the automation to replace the team with business under the multi-select property. I can change that to add, which is what I'm going to do in this case, which means it will add and keep the existing multi-selects in place. Now to finish this example, let's say every time it's a priority 1 item or business is involved, I want the system to add me in as an assign. Now notice how I've configured it with any of these to occur in the trigger and add the person in the action. Let's look at an expense management example that would be very different to the one that we've just talked about. Let's say you have an expense sheet where you record your business expenses. You have a category that ranges from professional services to subscription. The expense category itself could be a P&L. That's a profit and loss statement. Or it could be a capital expenditure statement, which you have to choose for your accountant. Then you have to record the spend value in US dollars. The last edited time comes up automatically. There is a text column called system comment that you answer with a yes or no question, which is a checkbox. Now let me populate all of this with some random expenses to make the expense sheet feel more familiar. You would have noticed that the type gets populated automatically because of the automation. Now I have intentionally left the printer category blank, and I will show you what happens a little later in the video when I populate it. Let's look at the automations for this scenario first to populate the type when I enter the category. I have defined which category represents a profit and loss item and which one represents a capital expenditure. Now notice here that I have used any to make sure that the database recognizes that only one will be chosen. Now let's fill up the printer category, and I will intentionally choose this as office supply, though it's actually office equipment. And let's see what happens. You will find that the system comment appears asking, isn't this supposed to be a capex item? Now it should be, it's correct. So let's change the category to office equipment and click on the no button to clear off the comment. Let's look at the automation for this. The first one we want to look at is the question automation. When you open it up, it says that if your spend is greater than $199 and the category contains any of the profit and loss items, then ask the question, is this capex? Now notice Notice here that both conditions have to be fulfilled. Now let's look at the not capex automation, which is the no checkbox. The system comment is cleared and the no is unchecked again as part of the automation. So do you want to know what this summer has in store for you inside of Notion? Watch this video. And if you want to know about other releases that Notion just dropped this summer, watch this video.